So this is 9.1, and it is our introduction to statistics. Could I have a volunteer read our learning target where it says LT? Mia?
Identify statistical questions and use data to answer statistical questions.
Thank you. So statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data. So doing some kind of study where you're getting all of this data, you're collecting it, you're organizing it in a way that makes sense, and then analyzing it and drawing conclusions from it. A statistical question is one for which you do not expect to get a single answer. Instead, you expect a variety of answers, and so you are interested in the distribution. Voices should be off now because I'm teaching a lesson. We're instead interested in the distribution and tendency of these answers. So for example, if I asked, I wanted to do a study, and my question in the study was, how many states are in the United States? Do you think that's something we really need to study and collect a bunch of answers for? There's an answer, right? How many states are in the United States? 50. So there would be no point in going around and asking all of you that question. Now, maybe I would ask all of you because I want to know if you know the answer, right? But there is a correct answer to that. Now, instead, if I went around and asked all of you, how many siblings do you have? Are all of you going to have the same answers? No, and I know that. But asking that question, that's a statistical question. It's one where I know I'm going to get a bunch of different answers, and so I'm interested in the distribution and tendency of those answers. I'm interested in what's the most common answers, how spread out are the answers, right? Maybe there's somebody with no siblings and then somebody with 15, right? So that's what statistical questions are. It's something where we know there's going to be a variety of answers, and I'm interested in what that variety looks like. So we're going to first determine if a question is statistical or if it is not. Again, a statistical question has a variety of answers. So this one says, how many countries start with the letter Z? Do you think that has a specific answer or a variety of answers? If it's how many countries start with the letter Z. Ratisha? Yeah, we could go through the list of countries and specifically count how many countries start with the letter Z. So I would say no, this is not a statistical question, and it is because it has a specific answer. Or I'm going to just write specific number. There is a specific number of countries that start with the letter Z. So asking a bunch of people that question, I'm not going to get a bunch of different answers. There is a right answer. The second one says, how much do bags of pretzels cost at the grocery store? So what we're wondering is there one answer to this, or do we think there is a variety of answers to this? Logan? Yeah, probably depends on the brand and the flavor and the store you even go to. So I would say yes, this is a statistical question because the prices vary. I know I'm going to get a variety of answers. That means this is a statistical question. Our next one says, how many days does your school have off for spring break this year? Well, this is fitting. We just had spring break. If I asked all of you in this room, how many days did your school, this school, have off for spring break this year? Would all of you have the same answer, or would all of you have different answers? The same. Therefore, this is not a statistical question. No, because there is a specific number of days that we got. Now, what do you think if you asked different schools? Do you think then it's possible you would have different answers?
Yeah.
Then that might be a statistical question. But because it said your school, that means all of us that go to the same school, and that means we're all going to have the same answer. And then our last one says, what are the hair colors of students in your class? I mean, look around. Do you all have the same hair color or different hair colors? Different. Therefore, this is a statistical question. Yes, because there are different colors of hair. We're not all going to have the same hair color. So the bottom line is a statistical question is one where there's a variety of answers, where there's not oh, there's a specific amount to this. There's a variety. Questions so far? Okay. The other thing we're going to talk about today is a dot plot. Here's an example of a dot plot right here. A dot plot uses a number line to show the number of times that each value in a data set occurs. So every time like a 2 shows up, we put a dot above the number 2. Each time a 3 shows up, you put a dot above the number 3. Dot plots show the spread and distribution of the data. They show how spread out it is, right? It ranges from this number to this number, as well as just the distribution. Is there like a lot of data in one spot? Is it evenly spread out? Is there like a big gap in the middle? Those types of things. So we're going to answer some questions about this dot plot. It says you record the high temperature every day while at summer camp in August. Then you create this vertical dot plot. Dot plots can also be horizontal, so a horizontal number line with dots above it rather than this. A, find and interpret the number of data values on the dot plot. So I'm just going to tell you how many data values are on the dot plot. There's 28. How did I come up with that? What did I do earlier before right now to know that it was 28 data values? How did I figure that out? Ethan? I just counted the dots, yeah. So I know there's 28. What does 28 mean in this scenario? Remember, this person was recording the high temperature every day while at summer camp. So if there's 28 dots, what does that mean about their situation? Dash? Yes, if you take it a little bit further, you're right, there's 28 temperatures. Logan? Which means they were at camp for 28 days. That is a long time to be at camp. So that's the first thing we want to know how to do on a dot plot. Count the number of values. There are 28. And then what does that mean? Well, if they're recording a temperature every day, 28 temperatures means 28 days at camp. Now, B says, how can you collect these data? Somebody tell me, how can you collect this data? This data is temperature. How do I collect that? Like, what tool might I use to collect that? To find out a temperature? Mia? A thermometer. And then it says, what are the units? So units of like length are inches, feet, centimeters. What are some units of temperature? Grayson? We have degrees, and I heard you say Celsius. So degrees Celsius is one type of measurement of temperature. Does anybody know another one? Lysandra?
Degrees Fahrenheit.
Degrees Fahrenheit. So there's specifically degrees Celsius and degrees Fahrenheit. There's also other ones, like Kelvin is another type of temperature. Fahrenheit is what we use in the U.S. for the most part. Celsius is used pretty much everywhere else in the world. And they are very, very different temperatures. So to give you a little point of reference, in the world of temperature, freezing for Celsius occurs at 0 degrees. 0 degrees Celsius is freezing. In Fahrenheit, freezing is 32 degrees. So that's a pretty big difference, right? If you tell somebody it's 32 degrees, if that's Celsius versus Fahrenheit, that's a big difference in the temperature. So let's look at these temperatures. These are like 80 to 87 degrees. Do you think it makes more sense that this was measured in Celsius or in Fahrenheit? Dash? Fahrenheit. If this was Celsius, these people, I think, would be dead because that would be so hot. Water boils at 100 degrees in Celsius. So if it was 87 degrees outside, I don't even think you could, like, live in that in Celsius. So that's why it makes sense for it to be Fahrenheit. So on your assignment today, there's going to be, like, some questions that have you talk about, like, what units are measured. One of the things is talking about basketball players' heights, okay? And the numbers for their heights are things like this. What unit do you think these heights are measured in? Because if you say a specific answer, I would love to know where you met these basketball players that are that tall. Fabian? You've met a basketball player that's 60 feet tall.
Oh.
So that's what I'm saying, right? We want to think feet because normally we talk about height in feet, but 60 feet, that would be insane.
I was thinking of 6 foot.
So then what do you think makes more sense? Inches. So that's what those questions are trying to get you to think about is based on the numbers, what units would be used. Because I know that's kind of short for probably like a basketball player that's 5 foot, but for like somebody in the actually like a professional basketball player. But anyways, we want to be thinking about that because if we say feet, yeah, that would be saying, oh, there's a 60-foot tall basketball player. That would be craziness. I don't even know that's impossible. So yeah, they wouldn't even fit inside. Okay, we have one more question we're gonna do. This one says, write a statistical question that you can answer using the dot plot and then answer the question. So they recorded the high temperature every day at camp. So what is a question we could maybe ask about this scenario where we know it's going to be a bunch of different answers? We don't expect there to be like one answer. Ratisha? What was that? Oh, we could ask the temperature of different camps. What if the only data I have is for this camp? What could I maybe ask? Grayson? Yeah, the average high temperature. If I say just what is the highest temperature, there is an answer, right? If I say like the highest temperature overall was 87. But if I say what is the daily high temperature, that was different every single day. So that is a statistical question. So I'm going to say, what is the daily, you can get table 3 up. Oh, here you go. What is the daily high temp at camp? Now, if I asked you to answer that question, we obviously know there's not one answer. It was a different temperature every day, but what would maybe be a good answer? How could you maybe kind of answer that question if I asked you what was the daily high temperature at camp? Logan? Sure. What if I actually asked you to like give me a number? What might you say? Mia? Okay, we have a lot of data around 86, so maybe we say like it was about 86. Does anybody have another answer, Ratisha? We're going to get into that later in the chapter. Yes, that is one thing you could do. And we are going to learn how to do that. But if I just look at this, Mia's suggestion of saying, oh, well, there's a lot right there, we could say it's about that. Is there another spot that also has quite a bit of data that we might say as well? Dash? Yeah, there's kind of a cluster around here. So I might say most of the time around 86 or 81 degrees. But like Ratisha had suggested, there are ways that we can actually numerically kind of come up with a good representation of our data, and we are going to do that later this chapter. Emma? Oh, sure, yeah, to say like approximately. Questions on that one? Okay, last thing before you get started is, what if I had that basketball player example? So the information you are provided is a bunch of different heights of basketball players. What is a question you might write about that scenario that you know doesn't have one answer, but I could answer using heights? What's a question I might ask about that? So in this case, I had high temperatures, and I asked, what was the daily high temperature? So what might I ask if my information is a bunch of basketball players' heights? Don't overthink it. What might I ask? Hayden?
What's the tallest basketball player?
So if I ask what's the tallest, there is an answer, right, in my data. What could I ask, though, about the height that doesn't have just, like, one answer? Graham?
Yeah.
I could say, like, the average height. Or just what is the height? Because I know there is not one answer, right? I know there's not one height of basketball players. There's a bunch. And so I could say, like, what is the height? I'm curious about the average height. We don't want to say tallest or shortest or something like that, just because that then does have a specific answer. Questions about that? Okay. Today's assignment, the paper